guys, thanks for joining me today to learn how to teach your dog to sit, lie down, and stand on cue. Helping me today is Lucy. I'm going to be using the lure, mark, reward technique. So first we're going to be using a piece of food or a treat to lure the dog into the position we want them in. This is going to help teach them our hand signal for the request. Then we are going to, as soon as they are in that position, we're going to mark that behavior that lets them know, yes, you got it right, great job, and that they're also going to be receiving a reward of some kind to further reinforce the repetition of doing that again. Okay, so today I am using a clicker as my marker, but you of course could use words such as yes or good dog as long as you are consistent with it so that your dog really understands what that marker word means. Okay, but for today we're using a clicker. Okay, so we're going to start out with teaching sit. So for step one, I'm going to be starting out with a food treat in my hand. And of course, she already kind of knows this one. She's been doing it for a good 8 years now, but that's okay. She can still demonstrate pretty good. My hand signal for sit is just raising my hand upward. Okay, so what I'm going to do to teach this behavior is I'm going to show her the treat at her nose level, and then I'm going to raise my hand up. As soon as her head goes up and her body tilts down, the moment that her butt touches the floor, that's the moment I'm going to mark, okay, with my clicker, and then follow it up by delivering her the treat. Okay, you see up. Cheater. Good girl. Thank you. Yeah, let's try that again. Move over here. Good. So I'm going to just walk away from her to get her up again, but I'm going to repeat this step with the treat in hand 3 times. Alright, so now that she has done it 3 times in a row, I'm going to get rid of that food lure and use just my empty hand signal. Please note that I'm not saying any words yet. Okay? And the reason is that dogs learn English as a second language. So if I was to sit here and just kind of repeat the word sit, 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 sit until she finally did it, it would be a much longer learning process for her. Dogs speak body language very well, so much better than we do. And so I'm using that food lure, that hand lure, to sort of teach her my specific hand signal for the word sit, or for the cue sit, so that I can then attach the word to it, okay, and then teach her that English word that means put your butt on the floor, okay. So for this next step, I have removed the food lure from my hand, still going to use that hand lure or hand signal, and as soon as she puts her butt on the floor, I'm still going to click and then pull out a treat from my treat bag and reward her. Alright, so she seems to have a pretty good following or understanding of what that hand signal means. So now I can go ahead and start adding in that English word. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the word, the verbal cue, sit, and then I'm going to immediately follow it up with the hand signal. Okay, I'm still going to mark the moment her butt hits the floor and then pull out a treat for a reward. Okay. Sit. Sit. Lucy, sit. Good. Sit. Good. Very good. So now she seems to be doing pretty good. So what I'm going to try doing is giving her the verbal cue without the hand signal and see how she does. If her butt hits the floor, I am still going to mark and reward. If it doesn't, then I'm going to follow it up with my hand signal and then continue to mark and reward when she does the behavior. Lucy, sit. Good. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and repeat that same thing for down. What I'm going to do, it's very good, I'm going to start her out in the sit position, because then at least half of her body is already down. Then I'm going to take that food lure, so my hand signal for down is the opposite of sit. So sit is raising the hand, down is lowering the hand. Okay? So I'm going to take that food lure while she's in her sit. I'm going to take that food lure to her nose, and then I'm going to move that food straight down to the ground below her nose. Okay, if I go from her nose and out towards the ground, she's going to be more encouraged to stand up and follow the treat rather than to just drop down. Now, once I put my hand down on the ground, I'm going to pause with it there. Okay, some dogs, they need a minute to process what is happening because we just switched up the rules on them, putting in new requests. So I'm just going to pause with my hand on the ground. The moment that her body drops down and her front elbows touch the floor, that's when I'm going to mark and reward. Okay. So again, if your dog kind of does the strong arm and just stares at the treat, just keep pause with that treat on the floor. The more that we just go up and down, up and down, up and down, trying to lure them into that position, the more confused they're going to get. So just lure one time and pause. Okay. If their butt pops up, however, they break that sit, you can go ahead and start over by putting them back into that sit and then trying again. But again, we want to pause with our hand on the floor until their brain can process it and they do a full body drop. All right, so she's already in her sit, which is good. So I'm going to take that treat from her nose and go straight down. Remember, we're going to do this 3 times with the food lure in hand. Yep. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and do it with an empty hand, right? So I'm going to remove that food lure. But I'm still going to mark and reward after she does the behavior. All right, so she's doing pretty good at this step, so I'm going to move on to step number 3, and that's adding in my English word. So I am going to get her back up, I'm going to ask her to sit, and then I'm going to ask her to down, and then immediately follow that verbal cue with my hand signal. See up, sit, down. Yep. Sit, down. See down. Some dogs at this point you still might have to bend all the way down to the floor, but the way that you sort of work your way off of that is by stopping at points as you work your way back into a standing position. So I might be starting out with going all the way to the floor, doing a click and a treat, but the next time I'm not going to bend all the way down. So I'm going to go right to here. Poked her in the eye. She's moving too fast. You sit. Good. And then I'm going to stop just a little bit higher. Good. Now your dog might take a minute to kind of process this step as well. So what I would do is I would just bend halfway down and wait for them to sort of process it and drop all the way down. Okay? You've been doing this at a high rate of repetition, so it shouldn't take them long to kind of figure out what was I last rewarded for. So one question that I often get is, when working on down, is that people will say, my puppy, they'll do it and do it and do it if I have a treat in my hand, but as soon as I try to remove that treat, they won't do it anymore. Okay, so what I suggest doing here is doing 6 really quick back-to-back repetitions of practicing the down with the treat in the hand, and then on the 7th time I want you to fake having a treat. So we're just going to go sit down, and each time they do that down they get that mark and reward. That 7th time I want you to pretend to have that treat in there but go just as fast. Okay, mark and then pull out that reward. Okay, and continue 7 through 9 or 10 or 12 or however many without that food lure in the hand. Okay. Now we're going to work on teaching the stand command. So the stand command, a lot of people ask, why do I need to know this? Well, First of all, your groomer is really going to appreciate it if you have a dog that has to go to the groomer very often, okay, because they need them to stand up on that table so that they can do all their groomer stuff. And then the vets also kind of appreciate it when a dog is able to stand on command and be examined, okay? So to get that stand, it's going to be the same whether the dog is sitting or lying down. We are just going to start with that food lure at their nose, and we're going to kind of wiggle our hand away from the dog to kind of taunt them to pop up forward. So think of it as they are, as if they are chasing a wiggly fish moving away from them, or a snake slithering away from them, okay? So we're going to start out with a sit or a down. Does not matter to me. I think with Lucy, I think her preference right now is to sit. And I'm going to take that food lure, and I'm going to show it to her nose, and then I'm going to wiggle my hand away, good, until all 4 legs are straight, and then she's going to get that click and a treat. Good, we're going to try it a little more sideways so you can see a little bit better. Good. Sit. Very good. So you can see I'm going straight out from her nose. I'm not going wiggling up in the air or wiggling down to the ground because that's going to make her think I'm supposed to sit or I'm supposed to lay down. Okay? So I'm trying to go from her nose a little bit straight outwards towards my own body. Go over. Good. There it is. Very good. All right, so that I think was 4 times with a food lure in hand. So we're going to move on to step number 2. We're going to do the hand signal without food in it, but I'm still, of course, going to mark and reward. And it's okay that she sat down expecting that treat, because that clicker, okay, that mark, let her know what she did right to earn that treat. Okay, so she understood that she was supposed to get into a stand position. Turn this way. Turn around again. This time we're going to try it from a down. Very good. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and start adding in that verbal cue for step number 3. So again, I'm going to say the word just before I give that hand signal. Stand. Stand. Lucy, sit, down, girl, stand. Oh, good girl. She didn't even let me give the hand signal that time. She picked up on the verbal cues so quick. All right, let's turn the other way. Lucy, sit, stand. Good. Now we're going to try it one more time. Stand. Good. All right, so that is our sit down and stand. So something else that I recommend, I got treats all over my hand. Something else that I highly recommend practicing is practicing these in a sequence together. Okay, and I'm not looking for speed with this sequence, I'm looking more for accuracy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna practice going from a sit to a down back into a sit, okay, which is a little more challenging. And then we're gonna go from a stand to a down back into a stand. Okay, so that's also a bit challenging. What I want you to do is I want you to continue to mark and reward for each position. Okay, so that's why I said we're going for accuracy, not speed. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate one time for you. See over here. When we sit. See down. Lucy, sit. Good job. We're going to stand. Lucy, we're going to down. And we're going to stand. Good. So the reason we practice in this sequence is because it's really good for their muscle memory. We don't typically ask them to go from a down back into a sit or from a down to a stand. Usually we use a recall or some other command, which is fine, but it's good for their muscle memory to practice going from one to the other. Now, every time you practice with your dog, you do not have to practice in the sequence, and you can certainly change it up to keep it fresh in their mind, because they can learn to memorize the routine, which is not a bad thing. It shows that they are learning, okay, because they're anticipating what to offer next. But we kind of want to keep them from getting into that specific routine of practicing. So again, you can mix it up, but it's good every once in a while to practice that sit down, sit, stand down, stand, so that they are kind of practicing moving from one position to a next that might not be what we practice on a regular routine. That is it. Thank you so much for joining me and Lucy. She was such a good demo dog.